Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome once again. Welcome back to part 2 of sexual harassment. Is it or isn't it? We had quite an engaging session last time with Jacqueline Mulandi, and she will be taking us through part 2 of the same today. So Jacqueline, welcome, and I'm handing over to you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Good afternoon to each and every participant who's joined us. And I hope, as last time, it's going to be engaging, but I would humbly request that maybe we save on for the sake of time, we save on the questions towards the end of the session. So I'll try my best to try and pick it up from where we left off and try and finish up. We don't have a section 3 again. So as I was mentioning earlier, we left off from trying to understand whether different scenarios are sexual harassment or not, and that were the casing point. And I'll just go directly to the explanations. Like I'd go to the first, the victim has been offended. Again, I'll go back when and say sexual harassment is when the victim gets offended. Whatever action that person particularly takes, if I'm offended, it is sexual harassment, no excuse whatsoever. Like the first casing point, the victim has to be offended. So even in the second example, Jane thinks funny and it isn't at all offensive, it's not sexual harassment. In the first example, number one, it comes as a compliment. That's the remark needs to meet the reasonable criteria to be termed as sexual harassment. Lots of questions would come in this situation. What was their relationship like normally? The compliment, etc. So it's kind of technical. I really insist the behavior needs to be pervasive or serious to be termed as sexual harassment. Jane, if you don't sleep with me, we'll fire you. Is serious enough that only comment is sufficient. Observing pornography while at work next to your peers can equally be considered as sexual harassment, because watching this pornography at work, especially next to your peers, what are you trying to communicate to your peers? Is it an indirect communication? Such such behavior, such acts actually bring about a hostile work environment, which we are going to see as we move along. We'll go straight to groups of sexual harassment. There are 4 groups of sexual harassment. We have verbal sexual harassment, we have visual, we have written, and we have physical sexual harassment. So how does these 4 groups of sexual harassment manifest itself in workplace? And take note, it's just not our workplace. It can be in schools, it can also be in our homes, it can be even in familiar residence. So sexual harassment is actually a very broad case, a very broad study that we time and time again we hear people are being subjected to it, not just at the workplace. It happens in schools, it happens even in our own home. So how, and this 4 group, how it manifests itself through these 4 ways. It can either be verbal, visual, written, or physical. So we go straight again to manifest itself. So we have 3 ways how the 4 groups of sexual harassment manifest itself. We have quid pro quo, we have a hostile sexual harassment. Quid pro quo sexual harassment is when employment decisions or expectations of whatever nature, hiring, decision, promotion, salaries, work assignments, or performance evaluations are based on an employee's willingness to grant or deny sexual favors. This is very rampant, I can say, in this area, whereby an employee is being subjected to a situation where, if at all you want me to endorse your performance appraisal in the right manner, you need to give me XYZ. Or if you want me to hire you, you need to give me XYZ. So quid pro quo, actually, this is one of the ways it actually manifests itself. Or if you want me to increase your salaries, Okay, fine. You want to do you have to do for me 1, 2, and 3 for me to increase your salaries. So this is one of the areas how it manifests itself in our workplace. The second area is hostile work environment. Hostile work environments consists of actions that must sufficiently offend. Again, we go back to the word offend, humiliate or distress the employee in the workplace. I'll give you common examples. Uh, I was once a few examples where an employee was passing by and they were being flashed with water in a hosepipe with a coworker, and you could see this employee was very offended. And I remember there's a time I did a training in a particular area, and I said bullying, sometimes we are sometimes somebody can bully you not because they hate you, just because they actually like you and they do not know how to tell you. And when this case was brought on, I kind of laughed about it because I could understand where this action came from. This particular party A felt that this is the only way they can be able to get attention from party B. But was party B offended? Yes, they were offended. They were offended to a point that they came to report this. So again, sexual harassment, whatever action it is, somebody has to be offended first. If you're offended, yes, it is sexual harassment. And it creates a very hostile working environment where people actually do not understand. It's a very stressful way. And some of the common examples as we go along is about looks, clothing, or body parts. This is whereby nowadays we go to body shaming, or somebody body shames you or makes a critique about the way you're dressed or your body. It creates a working that is create a very hostile working environment for that employee, with their insecurities. And how do you expect that employee to work in such an environment? Using sexual comments. I'll give examples. Hey, beautiful. How are you doing today? Or you're looking so sexy. Such comments, sometimes they are taken very lightly, but do you think by the time you pronounce those words, how the other party is feeling? Do you anticipate what the other person will get you on a date today? Who tells you I want to go to on a date? So such sexual comments actually create a hostile environment. Asking intrusive sexual questions, like, for example, I'd go say, what size of bra do you wear? That's a very intrusive sexual question, and it's very personal. And sometimes it's not correct. Making sexual suggestive gestures or sounds, haggling sexual posters or making sexual gestures. It's with your hands. I'm not going to give examples. I think we are all mature enough to understand some of these aspects. Telling sexual or lewd jokes. Sometimes it might be a joke, but to the recipient, is it a joke? How will they take it? Will they be offended? The moment they get offended, it is sexual harassment. Sending suggestive letters, notes, emails, or images. Nowadays, we are subjected to online sexual. Somebody sends you, which I've actually been a victim of. Somebody sends you a very explicit photo on WhatsApp, and they expect you to comment. And the first thing you wonder, what was this person thinking when they were sending you this photo? What is their mindset? What are they expecting you to communicate back? That is sexual harassment. Displaying pornography or other sexual explicit content, deliberately exposing private parts. Sometimes, like, I'll go back to our ladies. You're wearing a very short dress, and your work, and you're in a table. The table, you're not putting. One, you're wearing a very short dress. Two, how you are sitting with that short dress, it's not in a very inappropriate manner. Maybe you want to attract attention to the other sex. Again, I said sexual harassment goes both ways. It happens both male and female. And I remember in my last conversation, in my last training, I said male are subjected to sexual harassment purely because sometimes, and some women take advantage of their weakness. So if you have a short dress and you sit an appropriately next to a male counterpart, what are you expecting? What are you communicating to that male counterpart? You're actually going towards his weakness, and you expect reaction from it. So we go back to the third way it manifests itself is online harassment, online sexual harassment. This has become very common, especially in today's environment, because everything has become technical and everything has gone online. And online sexual harassment, unwanted sexual conduct on any digital platform, which is recognized as sexual form of sexual violence, e.g., sexual images, videos taken without consent. Me and you, we are chatting. It is. I remember when we were going last year, 2020, when we were just Corona had just hit, and we were going on lockdown. I remember sometime in April, there were these videos that were going viral of people who were doing sexual activities in a particular Airbnb. And when this thing was going viral, I kept on asking myself, what was the intention of the person who was taking the video? Was it right? Was it right? Let's start from there. It was not right, because this was a safe space whereby they all agreed. But why take the videos? And on top of taking the videos, why decide to leak these videos? What happened to this person or the parties who were involved? Sexual images, videos taken consequently by shared without consent. People who are in a relationship, and I remember last time I kept on saying that, and people actually asked for forms, type of forms. You can actually create consent forms. It's not rocket science. You can create consent forms whereby employees tell you we're in a relationship, because relationships are very tricky. Emotions are tricky. People who are in a relationship today, you're in a relationship, tomorrow the relationship goes sideways, and once it goes sideways, maybe one party decides they want to avenge. So whatever you guys were doing during that particular time when things were okay, somebody feels the need of starting to now share these videos, starting to now share these messages, which is actually very wrong. Harassing or pressuring someone online to share sexual images of themselves to engage in sexual behavior online, also, which is very rampant. You two consenting adults who know exactly what they are doing. Somebody decides, oh, share this part of your body online. This is how it looks like, and I keep on saying, and especially I'll address the women. We have the power to decide what is right and what is wrong. We have the power to decide what to share and what not to share. If you tell me to share photos of me, I will not share. It is my right. Why pressure me? And I feel like for the female counterpart, this is something we need to understand and we need to know. As I was coming to work today, I realized there was something that was online, on classic news, whereby they were saying, a statistics where they were saying that n- 9 out of 10 women do not 9 out of 10 women do not have a way of saying no to sex, or they do not have a way of saying, they don't have a stand when it comes to sexual activities. They are always prompted to do it, and they feel weak to do it, and they just feel subject, and they just do it. And for this training, when I was listening to that news, I told myself, no, instead of being 9 out of 10, why can't we be out of 9 to 10 of women? We have the right to say, we have the power and the right to say, no, I'm not going to send you my photos. No, I'm not going to send you whatever you are seeking for, because with today's technology, relationship goes sideways, they go south. What happens after 6 months when you've broken up and you feel you want to avenge? You start sharing my videos. It becomes a traumatizing effect to me or to that person, and the other party does not care. using threats of publishing sexual contents, images, video, rumors to threaten, coerce, or blackmail someone. This is actually online sexual harassment. Online threats of sexual nature, rape threats, inciting others online to commit sexual violence. This is very wrong. Inciting someone to participate in sexual behavior and then sharing evidence of it online, e.g., WhatsApp and social media. Today, my forum, and when we are doing the Q&As, I'll open the forum to this particular slide, whereby I'd want you guys to tell me the few examples you've had or you've encountered in this time frame, whereby our social media platforms are not being used in the correct manner. They are being used as sexual tools for avenging, sexual tools for harassment, and more or less sexual tools for threats and making the other party feel like they do not have the power to say no. For this particular slide, once we go on the Q&As, I'd want our audience to actually give out examples, because I know there are so many examples of all the experiences or what you've had is actually going on currently in our country, abroad, or anywhere else that actually measures to what I'm trying to address today. So, effects of sexual harassment. What is the effect of sexual harassment? There is emotional well-being. The victims, both male and female. By the way, I'm not being gender biased, because actually sexual harassment goes both ways. The victims get emotional and mentally drained. You can imagine you're going through this process, you do not have anyone to talk to, you do not have anyone to address this matter to. So what do? You become emotionally drained, you become emotionally victimized, and it goes to the mental health, because you get depressed, your self-esteem is compromised, and so many other things. And of course, emotional well-being affects the physical health, because when your emotional well-being is affected, your mental health is affected, so your physical health automatically gets affected. How? You start getting headaches because you're thinking of, what do I do? Or you're constantly thinking, what do I do? Maybe you're caught in a catch 22. I remember I had shared my experience from the first time I started employment, because I started employment at a very young age. And I remember when it happened to me, and it was just my first time job, and I was thinking, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And I was lucky at that party. I got someone who could me. But before that, I went through a process of depression, a process of emotional drain, a process of, what do I do? I've just gotten this job. I'm so young. It was just by sheer luck, I guess, at that particular time. And somebody here is trying to subject me into a situation, into a catch 22. It's either you do this, or I remove your privileges, or I fire you the next day. So you start getting headaches, because it becomes a thought process every day until you get a solution. You get you get sleep disturbance. Because of this, you start getting losing weight, and so many other physical health issues. Then it goes to there's also the financial challenge. Some victims of sexual harassment may even face broader career repercussions, such as loss of job. What if you say no? Because most victims who are subjected to this are people who they ask, if what if I say no? It means tomorrow I don't have a job. It means no job. It means I cannot be able to pay my finances. When do I get a job? So these are the questions that people linger into their mind. So once you say no, it means you're out of a job, or the favor that you're being subjected to offer in return is no longer going to be on the table. So there are also financial challenges, but there's also financial challenges also to the other party in terms of the organization. Because once this thing blows over as an organization, and this victim decides now to go the legal route, legal way. Now, legal aspects comes in, these lawsuits, lawyers, the organization has to pay so that they can manage the situation. Public pub, publications of you're trying to safeguard the image of the organization at the same time. So there's the organization spends money. At the same time, even the victim gets to lose their part of income, because once they say no, fine. Well, just they say yes and they decide, okay, I'm tired of this. I want to be a whistleblower, and now decide to go the legal way. The organization suffers. So financial challenges is actually both way, the victim and also the organization. Global consequence. Sexual harassment has a direct effect on employers and global economy. Each year, millions are lost due to absenteeism. You decide this, my supervisor is sexually harassing me. I do not have anywhere to go to report this matter. What do I do? The only best aspect to do is create absenteeism. Today I don't go to work, or there are few, because maybe your emotional and physical health is being affected. So of course the level of absenteeism in terms of sickness, in terms of leave, becomes so many. Then there's low productivity. Of course, this victim will be subjected to low productivity because the environment is hostile. She's no longer working based on to her full capacity, based on what she can offer to the organization, based on her skills, but she's working based on what she can give. So somebody's self-esteem is goes down, it's drained, and people are no longer seen for what they can give, but not what they can deliver in terms of the skills and expertise they have, but what they can be able to offer that particular person at the end of the day. It is a very emotional draining process to that victim. There's employee turnover, of course. In terms when it goes now to the legal way, you want to, somebody decides, now I cannot be able to handle this pressure, let me now resign. This is the only exit route for me. I cannot give you what you want, let me resign. So that's a turnover. The company loses, especially if at all the employee was a very good employee. There's low morale. The victims, of course, their morale is gone. This is somebody who maybe has gone to school, has spent money to go to universities, has spent money to do their masters, and and they come to a work environment where they're being told, your masters or your degree does not matter anymore. What matters is what you can offer me. Take it to the next level. Of course, that's a very demoralizing factor. And legal costs, as I had earlier mentioned, if the victim decides what, the legal aspects that surrounds this particular situation is actually very costly and tedious to the organization and also to the victim. The economy also suffers due to premature retirements and high insurance costs, because sometimes you want to pay off this victim so that they can keep quiet and safeguard the image of the organization. So this sexual harassment, if you look at it deeper, it's actually a very major impactful effect to organizations, not just as a country, but as a global effect. There is the psychological and the physical aspect. The psychology, of course, is the mental health, the anxiety, the stress, low self-esteem. You wonder, why me? Where can this person see me for what I can deliver, not what I can offer because of what he wants? Depression. Some even take their lives because of this. And it's because I tend to feel people do not take this matter with the seriousness it deserves, or it's supposed to be warranted. Most victims do not know where to go and report, or they are scared. They are scared, like, will they believe me? Will they trust me? Will they just see this as just another accusation that I'm just bringing on board for no good reason? So the emotional and mental and psychological aspect surrounding this particular issue, it's very draining and it is very harmful both to the victim and also to the organization if you look at it at a broader perspective. So what is sexual harassment cost to the organization? the need of for the employees to be off the job. Of course, if at all I feel like I cannot be able to pursue whatever you want from me, I'll be faking sickness all the time, or I'll just decide one day just to resign. Investigation of sexual harassment complaint, it is a tedious process. It takes time, depositions, the time frame, the money that you have to spend in terms of legal, the lawyers, and so many, and PR. It's a cost. Depositions, activity due to diversion of focus, negative impact of other managers, employers, and witnesses. Take note, the victims here is not only the person who is being sexually harassed. It can also be the person who's being accused of sexual harassment and they have not actually done it. Being accused or being coerced so that they can be able to give in to this person's demands. So it actually goes both ways. The adverse publicity of the organization, the image that this comes when this thing is populated in the media, the image is just, it's not right. Uh, an organization, how can an organization eliminate sexual harassment? Understand the definition of sexual harassment. Let's first understand what sexual harassment is. What is sexual? And let's not ignore that aspect. And as we started this, we said sexual harassment is any sexual advance that offends me. I need to be offended. And this needs to be taken with the utmost seriousness. I am a believer of prevention is better than cure. Let's not wait for the act to happen for us to act. Let's prevent the act. And this is one of the ways I have managed to prevent it in different scenarios by, as I mentioned last time, introducing sexual harassment in my induction. I want people to understand by the time they're coming to my office to complain of sexual harassment, these are the aspects, and this is what they're actually coming to complain about. So preventive measure is better than cure. Like the other day, we were seeing people, different scenarios happening in the media, which I'm not going to mention particularly, and with one of our media stations. And we're accusing this person of being gender biased, victim. And the first thing I asked myself is, what type of an environment is in this workplace? Do they advocate for such talk? By the time they actually come and by the time they actually come and accuse an employee of being gender biased or feminine, or they need feminine whatever training, what environment are you offering to begin with? Are you advocating for this, whereby when an employee is being told, today you are looking sexy, and this employee comes to the HR office and they complain, so and so told me I'm looking sexy, but I'm offended. And you as the HR, what have you taken? You take it lightly? No, you should not. Let's prevent these small things that look very look like jokes, look very lightly from the onset before it blows over. Incorporate training and on sexual harassment and disciplinary treatment in your workplace. This is very important. Sexual harassment training is very important. Sometimes we tend to think people know, but people don't know. There's a time a colleague was sharing with me that sometimes what you think is common sense to someone might not actually be very common, might not should actually be common sense. What you think that person should automatically know is wrong or right, they actually do not know. So what do you do? From the onset, from the induction, train. Yes, these things is in our policies. How many employees read our policy manuals? How many? How many employees read our employee handbooks? Some of the cases that are being brought to our tables, and the first thing you, as a HR, you ask that employee, did you read our manual? Did you read our policy? And they'll tell you, no, I did not even have time to read it. So once you train this from the onset, this employee has a mindset to know, by there, I cannot be able to do 1, 2, and 3. It becomes also a company culture where it's not being accommodated for. Ensure your workplace has sexual harassment policies, which actually I know all organizations have it. Raise awareness. Yes, you have the policy, but are you raising awareness? Or are we just assuming that employees will read the policy and they will apply accordingly? No, let's raise awareness. Let's raise the do's and don'ts about sexual harassment. Let's learn to do that. Let's put preventive measures before we go, before something blows up into our faces and we wonder, now we start now running helter-skelter, wondering, okay, what do we do? No, this was wrong, this was right. Did you read the policy? But did you create awareness about it from the onset?
Yeah, so I just paused right there to see who has a sexual harassment policy. You can see majority there. I think 86% have a sexual harassment policy. I'm told, I don't know whether this is a fact now, that you're required to have a sexual harassment policy if you have at least 5 employees. I know previously the act was at 20. I don't know whether that piece of legislation has been passed, but I came across that somewhere.
Also recently also did, Emily, something that was moving around 5, but I also always say, even if you have 2 or 3, it is important to have the policy in place.
Yeah, very true. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone who has voted. I think the ones who have voted no, we can always help them so that we at least are practicing best practices. And because we don't hold information, I think we can always share some of these practices and some of even samples of sexual harassment policy. Feel free to reach out if you need assistance on that.
As we move ahead, have clear, sorry, let me just close this. Have clear harassment reporting procedures in place. Trust you me, by somebody who, by the time you have to have, it has to be very clear and well outlined. And each an employee needs to be aware. If this happens to me, where do I go? How do I start? Who do I go to? The reporting procedures need to be very clear and clear cut. Some of our victims, most of them suffer because they don't know where to start or where to go or what to do. So let us have clear reporting procedures that actually communicate to the employee on the onset so that they're able to know, this is what I can do when it happens to me. Promote gender equality. Please, let's promote gender equality in our workplace. Recently in the news, case in point, the media, and I'm not going to mention the names of the media firm that is actually suffering from this particular feminism problem, accusations of whereby somebody insulted a victim. And again, I go back, my question was, what was the culture in this organization? Were they, if at all you can tell a cooking, if you can tell your colleague you are sexy, by the time now a colleague C decides now they are going to report and make it pronounced. Now that's the time you start wanting to act. Oh no, let's do feminine gender training. Why weren't you preventing this from the onset? Promote gender equality. We say that we are all equal, but correct me if I'm wrong during the Q&As. Male and females, we are not equal. In so many ways, we are not equal. And as a HR, I always tell myself, females and male, they will never be equal. We will never be equal, I'm sorry to say. And I apologize for whoever would be offended by this. But respect each other for what we are. Women are emotional. Men are stronger beings, but some men are also emotional. When we say we are, it is sometimes I always tell people it is okay for a female employee to come to my office and just cry about something, because that is us. That is our nature. That's our DNA. It is hardly likely you'll find a male counterpart coming to your office to cry. It's highly unlikely. Very few would actually bring themselves to that type of scenario. You see, we are different in so many ways. For me, promoting gender equality means respecting both genders. Let's learn to respect each other. Let's learn to respect who we are, our weaknesses, our strengths, and make each other better. That is for me what I feel gender equality should be. So, basic steps of handling complaints. So, once a complaint comes to you, what do you do about it? Take the complaint, interview the alleged harasser. Again, I use the word allegations because nobody is ever guilty until proven so. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty. So, interview the alleged harasser, initiate the investigation, take the appropriate action if necessary. Once again, I go if necessary. And this is a point where the person who's doing this investigation needs to apply some form of maturity to understand is this was it or wasn't sexual harassment? How did it start? Did this party advocate for it? Recently, there is a colleague of mine who shared something online about an employee who was on Google, who was employed in Google, and she faced sexual harassment in this particular firm. And when I was reading the article, there somewhere caught my eye, whereby he says the supervisor was calling her a certain particular name, which she was very offended about, and she decided to tell this person, "No, call me queen." Why are you telling them to call you queen? You are inviting this person in already. So if you're calling me sweetheart and I say I'm offended, no, don't call me sweetheart. No, let's decide, call me queen instead. You are inviting this person in. Why are you inviting them in? And I remember when I was starting this training, I said our male colleagues are weak, and sometimes our female colleagues tend to take advantage of their of their sexual weakness and start now pursuing things when we have a goal in place. I want to do this to A because I know I will get A. So when you're doing the investigations, you have to look at things in a very broader perspective so that you can actually determine, was there sexual harassment or not? Was this party trying was this person invited in? Did they accept it? Let's, like, if you tell me, let's go on a date. I go on a date. Fine. You expect anything to happen on a date. During the date, are you being is your communication clear to this other person that we cannot cross this line? What are you communicating? How are you communicating? What is your behavior? What is your body language? So when you're investigating, it's just not a sheer case of, oh, I was sexually harassed. It entails a lot of things. So informal intervention. So the first point of handling the investigation is do an informal intervention. The manager or the HOD will explain to the employee or volunteer the rights and responsibility under the organization policy. Again, you go back to the policy. So you can see how important it is to have a sexual harassment policy in place. Procedure, the equal employment opportunities and anti-discrimination legislation. So it also is very important when you're handling this informally, you need to explain to the employee, these are your rights. This is exactly what will happen, and this is exactly this procedure. This is what is being accorded for by the law. So when you're doing a formal complaint procedure, it first begins by filing out an official complaint form that can be picked from the Human Resource Office. Again, a complaint form you can be able to come up with a complaint form as per your nature and as per your design, how you feel it should be suited for your organization. But the employees needs to know that this form exists. I go back to the onset of the induction. When you're creating awareness and you're training about sexual harassment, the employees need to know these forms are available. When you're having a relationship, these forms are available. You need to declare it. if at all this happens to you, you need to come to my office, fill out this form so that you can start the process. Formal investigation may be conducted internally by a HR manager or officer or by an external investigator. Internal investigator happens when maybe the person who's actually being accused of sexual harassment is a HR person. So it tends to beat logic if you make the person who's being accused the person who, to investigate. So at this particular point, you bring an external investigator. The investigator may need to interview the parties involved, both parties, independently. And when you're interviewing the parties, you need to be very careful of the questions you ask, how you ask it, the evidence that are being put in place. And I always say, for me, if I do induction training about what sexual harassment is from the onset, and you come and complain about sexual harassment when this particular relationship is 3 months or 6 months underway, the first question I'll ask you is, I think I trained about this. Why do you feel the need to come to my office to complain when it was just fresh? I already gave you the leeway that you can come to my office open when it comes to such issues. And going back again to where creating awareness is very important, because it will help you when it comes to when a case is actually brought to your table. Because you'll start wondering, how did this start? When did this start? Why didn't you come to my office to complain? Why did you feel that you are fearful? So many questions actually erupt in this process. The investigator may need to interview the parties involved. The investigator may comprehensively and accurately document all information. So all information needs to be documented. Because take note, this is a very serious allegations that most companies actually, to safeguard their image, they pay a lot of money for. Records are kept and filed in a confidential, secure place. So this is very important. Confidentiality, I know as HR practitioners, we understand the basis of confidentiality so that at the end of the day, both parties don't feel victimized during the process, or there is no already assumed, is it assumed? Yes, assumed verdict when the investigation process has not yet been finalized. So findings of the investigation. The findings as to whether sexual harassment has occurred will be determined on the basis of the evidence and on the balance of probabilities. Balance of probabilities means that is whereby now you bring, based on the evidence in place, and that's where you start balancing. Was this a relationship? Was this a coercion? What was this? So findings are based on the evidence and balance of probabilities. It may have or it may not have. On the basis of the findings, possible outcomes of the investigations may include, but not limited to, any combinations of the following. Once, during the process of the investigation and the findings, of course, counseling of the victim must be undertaken, because this person is going through emotional, physical, psychological trauma. So counseling is very important. Disciplinary action against the harasser. It can be demotion, transfer, suspension, promotion. There is nothing as bad as when somebody comes to complain about sexual harassment and there's nothing that is done about it. It is even worse when the person, if at all the investigations that have been put in place, it actually shows this person was subjected to this, and that the person who was being accused, nothing happens to them. You can tend to imagine, for an example, somebody has accused, employee A has accused their supervisor B, and nothing takes place, nothing happens, and the supervisor B is still in employment. he has not been suspended, he's not been dismissed, and employee A still needs to report to this person. How do you expect that employee A, their productivity will impact the company? Should not be productive, should always be stressful, should always be in a state of fear, which is actually, it should not happen. So disciplinary action must be taken very seriously on the harasser. Once the evidence has clearly shown, yes, it was true, the sexual harassment took place. It also builds confidence to these victims and other employees in the organization that truly, if I come out and say I was harassed because of on the basis of 1, 2, and 3, action will be taken. It creates confidence. But the moment nothing happens, fear checks in, lack of confidence in our office as a HR practitioner and as a whole. Official learnings are not noted in the respondent's personal file. Disciplinary action against the person who complained if there is strong evidence that the complaint was vicious and malicious. Number again 4. That is why this topic was, is it or isn't it? Some people can tend to be malicious and to want to take advantage of other people because of their weaknesses. So when you're doing your investigations, you need to be very subtle to ensure that, is it or isn't it sexual harassment? How did it come about? What is the intentions behind this? What was the mindset of these two people? Or this is just a vicious allegation so that the other, or malicious allegation so that the other person can be victimized for no good reason. Formal apologies. Again, formal apologies. If this thing was from the onset, whereby people understand that if you tell me that I am sexy and I'm offended, it is sexual harassment. If I go to complain to the HR that if person A told me I'm sexy and I was offended, that's sexual harassment. And HR needs to take, or HOD needs to take immediate action. And at this point, you prevent what would happen in 6 or 7 months, whereby the other person who actually said those words would come and apologize formally. I'm sorry for saying this. I did not mean any offense, or this was my intention. And it has to be dealt with from the onset. Conciliation, mediation conducted by impartial third party is also key. If at all the evidence in place is correct, this prevents the situation from going to court, because if one person goes to court, sometimes these things are also leaked in the media. Like nowadays, I've realized our letters are no longer confidential. You can just be leaked so that public opinion can set in. Reimbursing any cost associated with the harassment. They might be costs. This person needs to go to see a psychiatrist. The organization needs to reimburse these costs. Recrediting any leave taken as a result of the harassment. Maybe I decided I want to take some days off to attend, maybe to attend counseling because of this. This needs to be refunded or recredited back. It shows support to the victim. It also shows that it also builds confidence to the organization from the employee, because the employee will feel more safe in that environment. Questions that may be asked during the investigation process. So when you're doing the investigation, what questions can you ask? Where did the behavior occur? This is very important because you need to understand, you need to have a mindset of where did it start? Who was involved? Were there any witnesses? Did you talk to anybody else about what happened? Sometimes as a victim, you always want to talk to a third party to relieve the pressure of what you're feeling in your heart and your mind. Has this happened before? Most people who sexually harass others in an organization or in any other settings, they have done it before. It's never a first time thing. This person has done it to another person, another person. So when you're doing it, when you're doing an investigation, it's always key to ask such questions so that you can be able to have concrete evidence before you implicate this person as being guilty. How long has it been going on? You need to ascertain. For me, if I trained you from the onset and you come a year later and you claim sexual harassment, and I look at how the process was, sometimes it's also, like I can say it was a relationship that has gone bad. Now emotions are at play. Emotions are now at play when one wants to feel like they want to avenge the other. And that when that happens, some people come and claim sexual harassment. Yet it was a relationship, a consenting to adult relationship. So it is very important, and I really insist that thing needs to be done from the onset, the awareness. So that those people need to understand that even you as a HR, you know, if the people who are in a relationship, they cannot come and start claiming sexual harassment when this thing has gone sideways. Was the person told that the behavior was unwelcome? Very important. Was the person told the behavior was unwelcome? Was this employee told if they tell party X you are sexy, it was unwelcome? Were they given scenarios of what can be considered as sexual harassment? Very important. Again, awareness. Were they told with this with the victim that I do not want you to come next to me, or I don't want you to touch me, or I don't want you to leer or stare at me in a very awkward manner? Very important. Was this done from the onset? If it was not done, then surely you cannot be able to victimize someone if you don't know from the onset.
Jackie, I'd like to maybe interrupt you briefly because people are wanting to drop off. If we can wrap up so that we can quickly do a Q&A. Yeah,
So
that
I
would be
think
great.
let me go to the questions not to ask. Avoid why questions. Why didn't you do something about it this before? Let's avoid that to the victim. Who would you want to continue working in this behavior? If it continues, let's avoid asking such questions because you're making it more worse to the person. Did he touch you or on your shoulder or on faces? Take note when you're doing the investigation, there is incidents of trauma towards the victim. So you need to be very sensitive in the questions you ask. Points to keep in mind when interviewing the alleged harasser. Describe the circumstances surrounding the complaint. Now, the person who's being accused, how are you going to interview them? Describe the circumstances around the complaint. Be serious and to the point. Be unbiased. Stay on the topic. Ask the person to respond to each allegation separately. Tell the alleged harasser that the behavior must stop. Document the meeting, take appropriate action based on the findings, follow up with the person who filed the complaint. So what are the points to ask when doing witnesses? Do not initiate, identify, or allege recipient of the harasser. Describe the situation and the circumstances of the alleged. So this is where now discretion comes to play to avoid gossip, because now you're interviewing witnesses around. So you do not want to convey so much information that will lead now to gossip and make the situation even more worse. Focus on the witness observation on the matter and talk in private. What can you do as a person to avoid sexual harassment? You must take immediate and corrective action as a person. Avoid instigating behaviors. Avoid instigating behaviors whereby it would be considered as sexual harassment. Inform higher level management when this thing happens. As a person, this is actually needs to be advocated for in all rounds. Communicate with human resources and to top management. Document actions taken. Documentation is very important as virtual of evidence taking. Communicate actions taken to affected employees. Advise employees of their rights to use complaint process. It is very important to inform your employees of their rights and their rights to know that you as a HR, you as a HOD, they can come to you at any given time to complain when they feel they're uncomfortable or their environment is being subjected in a situation they're not being productive. I had provided some statistical survey on the topics of how it can affect both parties and to what degrees and to what percentage, as from the previous training, some of you asked where is the, do you have statistics for this? So I provided a few, which is actually global. Once you get the write-ups, you'll be able to dig into it more. So, questions?
Thank you very much, Jackie. Well done, as always. If you would stop sharing the screen so that I can see who would be raising their hand. Somebody is clapping. Well done. Thank you so much. I want to share a short story that I came across she was an intern. She was actually working, this lady was working in a certain organization, and I was mentoring her, and she was very particular when she was asking for a mentor. She said, I want to be mentored by a woman. So in the process of the conversations we had, I came to learn that she had been sexually harassed in her previous employment, and she was very depressed. She actually quit her job. And so she was asking me, how should I handle such situations? And then she was applying for another job, and she was telling me, my boss will be a man. And what I said to her was, you can't run away every time you're sexually harassed. You can't keep quitting. I think it takes borrowing from some of the tips that you've shared today, Jacqueline, where we can support employees such as those by having policies in place, by them knowing that they can come to HR and report, by them knowing that they can actually talk to somebody about it and they won't be victimized, and by creating a safe environment. So for the young people and for anybody else who would be going through the same case, I think no one has ever died from reporting a matter like that one. And you also want to be a little bit selfish. It's about your career. So you need to have the courage to be able to face the situation. And speaking to somebody helps, because someone else is able to hold your hand. So that was my comment. I saw a hand. I saw a hand somewhere. If you can speak up, please. Annie.
Hi guys, how are you?
Well.
Are you able to hear me?
How are you?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Yes,
Now,
I can hear you.
okay. Now, my concern is, where do you draw the line? I think I have sent, it went privately to Jacqueline, but I have two questions. One is, where do you draw the line when an employee, like for instance, the example you gave where a male employee tells a female employee that they look sexy, but then there is the other point where that is how they relate in the office. So even as a HR, you have picked it up at one point and raised it as a concern, but there hasn't been any improvement until a time where now it becomes a sexual harassment complaint. But they have always talked to each other like that. That is how they have related, and they will tell you we've been friends. Then suddenly the lady comes and says, I am being sexually harassed. That is question number one. Number two, I think for any HR person, proving sexual harassment or even the court has been one of the biggest challenge, because aside from the obvious cases where you will say he grabbed my butt or he touched my boob or he has been sending me this and that kind of text messages, there are employees that get harassed privately to a point where they are not able to really do much. Because for instance, when a boss calls you to their office and then they start to say things or do things, they never write it. It is not anywhere on record. So what would be your advice to HRPs and even to employees who may be going through that kind of scenario or might experience later, God forbid? How do they spot these kinds of instances? And secondly, how do they provide proof should there be need in future? Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. Maybe we can take a few others and then
Thank you, Anne.
Jacqueline will take them together. Jacqueline, I was proposing to take any others, in another two, and then you can respond. There is Betty.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Mine was in an event, for instance, let's say you are in a building where there are some other clients who are not members of the organization, and an employee complains that, let's say, the outside person has sexually harassed me. Now, how do you pick it up? Thank you.
Right, I think you can pick those, Jackie.
Thank you so.
Yeah.
This is how they correlate. If you take sexual harassment as an induction process, you will not be seeing such things. It will be very clear to. This has really worked for me in a previous situation, whereby when I started doing this training, I was facing an environment whereby it was okay for some words to be thrown around. It was okay for some done. And as a HR, again, we go back, as a HR, we are a parent. How do you protect your employees? For me, when I started doing this training, I felt like, how do I protect my employees? How do I tell my employees this is not right? And the moment you start advocating for it, this is where it's going to head. And to be very honest, when I started doing this from the induction process, people understand what do's and don'ts. Once an employee advocates for this, once I have trained you, it's like a mother, as a mother, you tell your kids, don't touch the fire. If you touch the fire, you get burned. So the moment your child touches the fire, when they come to you, the first question will be, didn't I tell you not to touch the fire? You'll get burned. Now you've gotten burned. Now now it becomes, there's a borderline where now you need to determine what was the intention of this female employee. She has already been told that these are the situations that can be constituted as sexual harassment. Yet she feels the need to invite this person towards this direction. So what is her motive exactly? Is her motive to lure in this male counterpart so that she can be able to gain favors? So as a HR practitioner, you need to actually determine that from the onset. Because there's no way you can come and tell me as a HR, and I've already trained you and I've already told you that this is wrong, you should not accept this, then you accept it, then you come to me and tell me some few months down the line it is sexual harassment. It means there's an angle. There's an angle here. So it is you to determine what angle is. But you as a HR, have you communicated to everyone in the organization that this is what can be constituted as sexual harassment? Again, sexual harassment is anything that can offend me. Am I offended? I don't care. Am I offended? If that person is offended, they have the right to come to the HR office and complain. And immediately when that person complains, you call the other person. You need to stop this. You remember my training? You need to stop this. So it becomes a culture. So it is how you define your culture based on what should be accepted in terms of the wordings, in terms of what people should call each other, how people should relate in the office. Determine the culture you want to set as a HR. So that is one. So question two, Anne, I can't remember question two. Can you elaborate question two? Anne?
Yes, please.
Can you elaborate question two?
What I was asking was there are those instances where somebody is actually being harassed, but it is not a public thing. So there are no records, there are no videos. It is just my word against their word. You remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I'm doing the training, when you're doing this training, when you're creating this awareness, it is important to tell your employees, or it is important to make them known that if this is happening to you, you need to start recording. You need to start gathering evidence. Me, I'm always blunt. I'm always blunt with my counterparts, my colleagues. I'm always blunt and tell them, if this happens to you, and sometimes you see it coming. It's rare cases you never see it. You see it coming. If your boss calls you in the rare time of the night, in the past 7 or past your working hours at 7 o'clock, and the employee and your boss decides they are going to call you in their office, for what purpose? What are they calling you? So you already seen it coming. So how do you protect yourself? Record. I always, when I'm doing my training, record. Find a way to implicate this person. Give your employees confidence to understand that if you are faced with such a scenario, you can do 1, 2, and 3 to stop it.
Yeah.
Also, when you're creating awareness, there's something that happens. Both the environment becomes so clear that people become fearful of what to do, because they know, the HR has been teaching about this on a regular basis. So she whatever, if I try and make a move on this person, there's a high likely chance they might go and report, and the HR will take it. So you as the HR, what is your stand in the organization? Your stand needs to be well known, so well known, so well defined, so well, you need to vocalize it. Vocalize it, and it be known that I am anti this. I'm not gonna take this. I don't care whichever level it goes to, I'm anti this. I've gone a notch higher. After I've done the training, I always call those particular set of employees once in, after 3-6 months. I always ask them, hey, how are you doing? Are you feeling okay? How is the environment? Do you feel harassed in any way? I do constant spot checks. So that to ascertain that my training is working, so to ascertain that people are not feeling hostile, because again, we do not want to create a hostile environment. I go back to Betty.
Thank you, Jackie.
For an external person, the best thing you can do is you need to go talk to the managers of that particular external person, because I always believe as the HR, your powers are only limited to the organization you work. But you can take a step of, because once this employee has come to you, it means this employee has trusted you that you can be able to take care of that particular situation. So you can take a notch higher, go to the management of this other person and tell them exactly what has been reported to you, and you tell them they need to tell the employees to stop. When I was starting my career, there's something I was told by my colleague. She told me one thing, as a HR, it is important that when an employee comes to your office, they're coming for solutions. They're coming for protection. They're coming because they trust you. So you need to offer that solution, you need to offer that protection. So you going outside, you're actually offering that.
Thanks, Jackie. We do have Catherine. Yeah, we have Catherine Omangi's hand. I'm just conscious of time. We have a few more minutes, a couple of minutes. Catherine, you can speak now.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for the two-part series. Very informative, just to highlight the reality that happens on the ground. And thanks, Emily, always putting us together. I think one of the things that we cannot fail to emphasize at the workplace is the need of creating awareness through the line managers, that HR cannot always be the one who is tasked with the responsibility of drumming up the need for us to adhere to the sexual harassment conduct and policy in the organization. However, that said, one of the things that I really draw back is towards my peers, my juniors, my seniors, and really call out bad behavior. Even if you work in another organization, and I know that you're not a manager that leads with empathy, with vulnerability, with ability to listen and take feedback. And I have heard from other quarters that you are my friend and this is what you're doing. I take the liberty and ask you in a very subtle way, how is your leadership style? When's the last time you took feedback from your team? How is success looking to you in this quarter? Have there been any complaints? Does your team come to you, in terms of helping out? Because if we don't do that, then we find that we create a bad society. We create bad workplaces. We create poor relationships and friendships, and that starts from the family front. I know people who have engagements around with my friends and people just around the society. I'll make it very short. Working from home has exposed us line managers how we treat teams. And people will say, this is my spouse whom I don't know, really not being the model line manager that they should. Either they are always cross with people, not treating people well, using their power inappropriately. And it's time for us to be able to do that even at the family unit, to be able to emphasize that. And unfortunately, the younger people who come to the workplace really tend to say, I don't have a job, I want to hold on to this job, I want the experience, so they will go through that. If the workplace culture is not ideal. So again, the first thing is that we look at our workplace culture. The other thing, we look at performance. Every day, how do we talk about performance? The third thing is that even when we are talking about sexual harassment, there must be a place of these are the consequences of what we are going to do. And just really pulling them out and talking around, these are some of the cases which have been taken to court, and these are some of the consequences at our place. These are some of the consequences that we'll institute if we feel that people are not towing the line around sexual harassment. And third is for people to be aware of how much your brand can be eroded when people hear that you are really not adhering to the sexual harassment policy from a statutory point of view and also internally. Take a case of Oxfam. Oxfam is out in the media now again. They've been trying to grind it and say turn around the area of sexual harassment, and they've come under heavy attack. They're losing their credibility, they're losing their partners, their donors. So it's important not just for the individuals, but also for the brand. You don't want to destroy a great brand because of some of the things that we should be doing. So first, retrospect as ourselves, as individuals, who we are, how we present ourselves, make sure that we are peering each other, line managers are informed, consequences are there, policies are adhered to, and we have constant open communication. That's my take. It's really been good. Thank you. I'll reach out to Jackie and Emily. I have something that I would like us to partner with on this area.
All right, amazing, amazing, amazing. And I know a lot of you still have got questions. If you do, please go onto the online community. Jackie will be able to respond to you, plus I'll share her email address if you would like to reach out to her. And Catherine, you wrapped it up so well that it's just not a HR responsibility, it's an all-round, also enabling and facilitating your managers to be able to support you, protecting the brand of the employee, the brand of the organization, and the HR brand. I think that's really, really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to give you, Jacqueline, a final, an opportunity for final words before we can close.
All I'm going to say is when I was starting this, it was very personal for me. And I can say, as for the HR practitioners, echoing what says, the reason as to why I did this is because I've realized we do not vocalize it. We don't want to deal with it. It's time we vocalize. It's time we be on the front line. It's time our line managers, our supervisors understand that you've been employed as a HR manager and this is your stand based on this, and you're not gonna take it lightly. Also, create confidence to your employees. You are their mom, you are their dad. They need to come to you when such scenarios happen. Create that environment whereby they can come to you when they feel that their environment is becoming hostile because of 1, 2, and 3. And sometimes even our line managers are the ones who do this. They do this and they do not care. So for me, I have an open door policy whereby an employee can come to me anytime they feel like. And I have made this known to each and every individual. So this is very, very important. And I wish that as HRs, we practice and we stand in the front line and we vocalize it moving forward.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Very proud of you. Well done. Thank you for the courage and thank you for bringing this very important topic to all of us. And I invite you all to future events. Feel free to participate in this platform. I really appreciate you for being here. We honor your time, and I just want to wish you a very nice weekend. Thank you and bye.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, everyone.